drama that has had a level of advanced publicity more common for a major movie. This may be appropriate as its central characters are both celebrated film stars. Burton and Taylor recreates a time when Richard Burton, 1925 to 1984, and Liz Taylor, 1932 to 2011, agreed to appear in a 1983 Broadway production of Noel Coward's Private Lives, despite the small obstacle of having twice been married and divorced since falling in love originally on the set of the disastrous epic Cleopatra. They'd accepted this New York acting gig partly because of the expensive and addictive lifestyles they were funding. But as shown in William Ivory's screenplay for Burton and Taylor, Liz's personal problems in particular were affecting her professionally.
This is serious. We open in 10 days. You're not remembering the words, your cues, any of the business. We both know why that is, don't we?
I'm not doing that anymore. Not since yesterday morning, as a matter of fact. I'm not taking anything. Except the bare bones. Because they can befuddle me, Richard. It's true. They can befuddle me, so for the sake of the show, I'm putting my health to one side. And, well, you can expect a different Elizabeth from here on in, I promise.
Okay, good. Well, let's work on some scenes.
Dominic West and Helena Bonham Carter in the title roles of Burton and Taylor, which, following channel reorganisations caused by budget cuts, will be the final drama screened on BBC 4. With me is the writer Linda Grant, whose novels include The Cast Iron Shore and We Had It So Good. Linda, so the film has had almost as much publicity as Burton and Taylor's Cleopatra did, but has it worked out better than that project?
Moderately, I would say. Moderate. This was a huge romance between this couple. It's a huge and sexy, expensive relationship, which, notoriously went through the whole 60s and 70s. I remember it very well. And what the mega celebrity romance, and it was 50 years ago that they first met, which is rather scary and might not mean anything to anybody under the age of, say, 50. So you have to have some sense of what was this kind of nuclear attraction between these two people. And I think it does do that, because he in particular, well, from my point of view, is incredibly sexy. She, I think, Lena Bonham Carter, I think, is a little miscast, because she's a very quirky actress, and Elizabeth Taylor was never quirky. But you can see that they make each other laugh, and they're physically terribly, terribly attracted to each other. But it does a really odd thing, which is that Richard Burton, who is this famous boozer and womanizer, in this is Mr. Sensible. He is the person, as we heard in this clip, who is saying to her, you've got to remember your lines. He's the one who isn't drinking, she's the one who's on pills. So it's a very strange dynamic between the two of them.
We can only speculate about this. I wonder, there is often in biodramas the fact that the person who has the more protective and attentive living relatives comes out better. And it is very odd this. They clearly had access to Richard Burton's diaries. But I find it personally hard to believe that he was as sober and responsible at this period. I mean, he died less than a year later, and he was in a terrible state, which there's no sense of.
No. I've just been reading this weekend a novel which occurred called Beautiful Romance, #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, which has a cameo appearance from Richard Burton during the making of Cleopatra. And he is an alcoholic mess, and this is back in 1962. So to see him as, so very sobered up, never taking a drink, seems to me to sort of, quite distort the relationship between them. And it's partly, I think, exacerbated by this rather kind of, wayward, quirky performance by Elizabeth Taylor, who's always seemed rather calm to me. So I thought it was a bit strange from that point of view.
No, it did seem very unfair that she's a self-indulgent lush entirely in this. It's also quite kind to the production of Private Lives, which was a notoriously awful production, and yet again here seems to have worked out quite well in some ways.
Well, I think that what they're trying to get at was that there was a terrible dynamic between the two of them, which is that he is an actor and she is a star. And he was a very great Shakespearean actor. He made fewer films than his great stage appearances, and he gives the stage up for Elizabeth Taylor. So what happens is, when she sort of decides she's not going to turn up because he's offended her, and the understudy has to take half the audience walks out, And he's terribly hurt by this, and we know that he was very hurt by the fact that she got the Academy Award for Virginia Woolf and he didn't. And you can see how disastrous the performance is, because she's not a stage actress. And he keeps on defending her as an actress and saying, oh, she's, absolutely wonderful actress. But there's no sign of it in this, in this, what you see of the production of the play.
It's also very hard, as you said, for West and for Bonham Carter, because they both had famously idiosyncratic voices. Burton had this extraordinary cigarettes and Welsh with a bit of drama still thrown in. Liz Taylor born in Hampstead Garden suburb, although to Anglo-American parents. And again, she's just done kind of a sort of generalised American, I thought.
Yeah, I think she looks wrong, and there's a sort of, when I first saw her, it's as if the beauty spot, Elizabeth Taylor's very famous beauty spot, had just kind of fallen by accident onto her face. She's a very small woman, Helena Bonham Carter, and Elizabeth Taylor, was rounding out, but she doesn't look like her.
The star's getting smaller, as someone once said. Thank you to Linda Grant. Burton and Taylor is on BBC 4 at 9 p.m. tonight and is released on DVD on August the 26th. Every year, the Harrogate Crime Writing Festival begins with the presentation of the Theakston Old Peculiar Crime Novel of the Year prize. And at the 2013 event over this weekend, Denise Miner, who won last year at the end of the Wasp season, took the prize again with Gods and Beasts, in which her regular Glaswegian detective, D.S. Alex Morrow, investigates a case involving an erratic Scottish politician. I spoke to Denise Miner in Harrogate after her victory and suggested that she's becoming to the Crime Novel of the Year prize what Hilary Mantel is to the Man Booker. Having won with 2 books in a row, she'll be regarded as a failure if she doesn't do it a third time.
Yeah, I was standing there thinking about Hilary Mantel, and then I realised that Bring Up the Bodies isn't quite as good as Wolf Hall, and maybe it was a pity vote, and I went into this kind of Catholic tailspin and then just gave a speech about how hot I was. It was quite moving.
I noticed last night that you were the only woman on a short list of 6. It surprised me when I noticed that. Does it surprise you that still seems to happen?
Gender audits are very difficult, and I think, really, if we want them to be effective, we have to hold them to things that are quantifiable, like political lists, things like that.
And on prizes, Kingsley Amis famously said that he didn't believe in prizes until he won one, but everyone will recognise the human truth of that.
Yeah, I think if you win them, I think you shouldn't start believing in them, because really what books are about is a connection with a single reader who brings sort of baggage of preconceptions and expectations to the book and just connects with the narrative in the way that maybe you intended. But I think prizes are a really useful marketing tool, and they are lovely, and you do feel incredibly euphoric afterwards. It's a real buzz.
You mentioned reader expectation. There's that huge example at the time when we're talking that obviously an extreme case, but J.K. Rowling, who in order to get away from reader expectation, actually went and hid behind a pseudonym, Robert Galbraith, for as long as she could. I suppose all writers have that fantasy to some extent, do they, of being able to be unknown again?
I don't. I think if you're a very, very big writer like her, people want you to write the same book over and over again, and she doesn't want to do that, and hats off to her. I really respect that.
Well, that's exactly what I'm getting at, because I've been on planes and on beaches where people publish a book a year, so I say, well, that's okay, but they've done something different this time, with a kind of fury that they do just want the same book, and writers don't want to write the same book.
I think you have to lose your audience every so often. As an artist, if that doesn't sound too pretentious, you have to lose your audience, because you should be developing and you should be doing different things.
Gods and Beasts, apart from being a very compelling plot, as we would expect, has one of the most tantalising acknowledgements I've ever read in a book. Now, you're going to have to tell us about this. One of the acknowledgements is to eagle-eyed Marjorie Laird, whom I met in Barnes & Noble on the Upper East Side for keeping Sturm. What had she spotted?
She had spotted a flaw in a book, quite fundamental, and she sort of said to me in a very polite way, if this had happened, wouldn't that happen? And I just didn't have an answer for her, and I had to say, please don't tell anybody. And I'll put you in the acknowledgements of my next book. And she said, yeah, all right then. So that's Marjorie.
So one of your books has a huge plot flaw.
Massive. It's impossible. And I can't tell you what it is, because Marjorie could sue me as much as I could sue her, obviously.
You must be tempted to quietly go back and correct it for a future edition. Or you'd have to rewrite the whole book, would you?
I I would rewrite my first book over and over again. I never finish a book. I just get it taken off me.
One of the things you have done